YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back, rating all 32 first-round picks from the 2025 NFL Draft. We're going to have videos leading up to day 2, after day 2, the same for day 3, live analysis on our Twitter. Something to keep in mind, we are grading the pick, not necessarily how the player will perform the rookie season. It's like we always do. Let's do it. Titans taking Cam Ward first overall. I'm giving it a B+. Obviously, they didn't take one of the elite prospects. They didn't take the top player in this draft, but they got the best quarterback in the class, something that needed to be done. A top 10 player on my board. The best part about Cam Ward and the Titans is he instantly makes you a winning team. He gives you a chance. He gives you life, and that's what the Titans needed here. It's what Cam Ward's done his whole career. Has that big play ability. He'll play some hero ball. There'll be some mistakes early on. No need to panic if that happens, but this feels like a solid B+ for Tennessee at first overall pick. The Jags trade up to 2, and they take Travis Hunter, my number 1 player in the draft, a generational prospect, and typically getting that type of player at 2, not 1, gives you an A+, but we can't ignore the trades here. They do trade up. There's a lot of risk in it. An even trade would have been giving up next year's 1, but they give up that early second-round pick this year as well, so it's risky. If Trevor Lawrence gets injured, then it doesn't look as good, but at the same time, you're going up and you're getting a generational prospect, an elite receiver. He can play corner at elite level. He can help the Jags in both categories. I love him at receiver. I love him with Brian Thomas Jr. So we're going to keep this in the A range. Going to give it an A-, my top player in the draft, but it is a risk what they traded. They gave up a lot, but it's worth it sometimes to go get these big-time players. Giants take Abdul Carter at 3. I only had 3 elite prospects in the class. This was one of them, my number 2 player in the draft. They get him at 3. They were probably tempted to get their quarterback here. They got him later, and they didn't. I'm glad they didn't do it here. They got Abdul Carter. They created a nasty, nasty defensive line with him, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and even Kayvon Thibodeau in there as well. So they can win games off that pass rush alone. Carter was a top 2 prospect in this draft, so it's an easy A for the Giants. Patriots at 4, taking Will Campbell. Yeah, maybe not the sexiest pick in the world, but badly needed a left tackle. They take my top tackle in the class in Will Campbell. Very likable kid. Got a good attitude. Got that swagger, that nastiness to him. So you love that. Drake May needed that left tackle. He's going to protect him for many years to come. So this was, in a way, the right pick they had to make. Again, it's not like, wow, how'd they get that there? It was expected. So I think it's a firm B+ for the Patriots at 4. The Browns with a splash move, trading back from 2 to 5. They take Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive tackle. We have to factor in the trade. Look at the trade in terms of value. They won it for sure. They got a next year first, and they actually, on top of that, added an early second. Tonight's going to be fun for the Browns. They got a pair of early second-round picks, so they did a tremendous job in terms of value, what they acquired in that trade. And I like the Texans trade as well, because 5th-round picks are better than 6th and 7th. It's common sense. So they did really well with the trades, obviously. But you also have to factor in they passed on an elite talent, the best player in the class, a generational talent in Travis Hunter. And they've been badly needed a top receiver, and they passed on that. And, who knows? Maybe we'll see what they do tonight. They could have ended up with Hunter and Shedeur. So people will be talking about that, for a while here. But so you kind of got to factor that all in. They still get a really good prospect. Mason Graham was a top 10 player on my board. He was actually my number 2 defensive tackle, though. But they've been badly needing a defensive tackle. I think he's going to be, production in measurables were kind of his knock. You wish you had a little bit more production. I think it's going to elevate, playing, inside of Myles Garrett. So they get a good player. The value in the trade's great. It's more of a, yes, this is great for the future. They do pass on elite talent, so I thought a B, kind of combining all those things together. Because, again, I in terms of just the trade value, I loved it. So B makes some sense here for Cleveland at 5. At 6, the Raiders went with who we expected. We were staying consistent with it. They were going to take Ashton Jeanty. They did it. They get a top-tier player in this class, a rare type of running back. This feels like a B+ to me. It's a great, a solid pick. It's a great prospect. Like we said, one of the better running back prospects we've seen. Just the Raiders have a ton of needs. That's the only downside here. How much is a running back going to do for you? Is this like the Giants getting Saquon Barkley, where he's going to be elite, but is it meaningless? So that's kind of what you wonder here, but they can win with the running game alone. They get a top-tier prospect, so it just feels like a B+ for the Raiders at 6, taking Jeanty. Jets at 7 select Armand Membou, the right tackle from Missouri. Some expected Warren, some expected Membou. They end up with him. They kind of complete that offensive line. They needed a right tackle here that's got to stay healthy. So really solid right tackle. This is kind of around the range where he should go. So it's just another one that feels like a B+, maybe in the range of A-, right in that range. Just, obviously isn't a big wow pick, but it's kind of what the Jets needed to do here. Even if Warren was a little higher on the board, it's like, man, we can complete the offensive line here. We can get a bully right tackle. Let's go ahead and do it. That's what they did. Panthers at 8th overall select Arizona star receiver Tetairoa McMillan. I like this one. I gave it an A-. I know the expected pick was Jalen Walker, and a lot of fans kind of talked themselves into Jalen Walker because they thought this was going to happen. So Panthers fans, all fans, I want to see your grade, your thoughts in the comments. Were you kind of sold on Walker, or is this was kind of the original pick everyone thought, everyone wanted, like way back in January. So it's a great fit. Bryce Young needed a receiver like this on the outside. It's going to elevate him. It's going to elevate the offense. Keep elevating it. Why not? I know they badly needed defense. That's kind of the knock here. But getting comparisons to Mike Evans, so that's, Dave Canales coached him, so that's great. I like the Michael Thomas comparison a lot more. That's kind of something I jumped on pretty early. But really solid fit. Going to elevate the offense. Going to make some big plays. Maybe thought he was going to, slip through a little bit. The Panthers would go defense. So A- felt pretty good. I like it better than Jalen Walker. I thought this was too early for Jalen Walker. So, solid pick for Carolina. Saints at 9 go at Kelvin Banks, the Texas offensive lineman. I'm going to give this one a C+. Yes, there was a lot of buzz about Banks going early, but I kind of go off my board. According to my board, this was a little early, but it's a premium position. He's a very safe pick. Whether he plays tackle or guard, either one, he's going to be solid. It's very important for Kellen Moore to get offensive line. They're building that up. They're making it better. I'm curious where they end up using them. I mean, they could put Fuaga back at right tackle. They put Banks at left tackle. If that's what they do, maybe I give this a B-. They have Penning for right tackle. He's not the long-term solution. There was some talk about a lot of teams grading Banks at guard, and then and that could be the case. The Saints do need a left guard, but did you just take a guard, 9th overall with some legit talent and fits on the board for the Saints here? So, and then some guys slipping through, guys in the top 5 on my board. So C+, B- range for them. It felt a little early for me, but based on the chatter, it kind of made sense, something we expected here. The Bears make a little bit of a splash. They take Colston Loveland, a little bit of a surprise here at pick 10. I'm going to go B-. I know it wasn't really expected. It's not really what the fans wanted. They kind of talked themselves into Ashton Jeanty. We expected him to be gone. I really think they were taking Calvin Banks. He went the pick before. But, Loveland gives you a little more juice than a guy like Calvin Banks. A little more exciting here. They did take him over Tyler Warren, who I thought was the clear best tight end. I tell you what, if Loveland was did a little bit more for me after the catch, like a little bit more physical after the catch, he would have been the best tight end in the class. You look at the best tight ends in football, they're all nasty after the catch. So Loveland is missing a significant thing there, but he's a nasty receiver at the tight end position. He kind of moves like Travis Kelce a little bit. Not that I'm going to compare him to him. Kelce is a lot more physical, but Loveland could get more physical. So pair him with Cole Kmet. This could be a Sam Laporta for Ben Johnson. It's for Caleb Williams. To me, he's going to be pretty productive for them. Him over Warren again. It's a little bit of a surprise pick. So I felt like a B-. I know I see a lot of Bears fans when I suggested this before the draft, and now they're not too excited about it, but I think a B- makes sense there for Chicago. The guys they really wanted were off the board, so it's not. I'm kind of glad they didn't trade the house to go up and get a running back in Jeanty. I did not want them to do that. I love some fits for them in day 2. We'll see what they end up doing. 49ers take Mykel Williams at pick 11. I wasn't a huge Mykel Williams guy. I do love the fit. I think he could pan out and be a good player for the San Francisco 49ers. I know they like the lengthy guys. They get one of Mykel Williams. He's instantly a really good run defender for an edge rusher, kind of like a DeMarcus Lawrence type there. So that's great. Niners run defense been struggling recently. He has a lot of upside as a pass rusher. I wish he had a little bit more explosiveness off the ball. I wish he had a little bit more juice, a little bit more closing speed. That's where I didn't like him, because if you look at the top pass rushers in football, all of them, they explode off the ball. But Georgia, again, they like their pass rushers to sit and read, make sure they hold contain. If you cannot keep contained, you are not starting for the Georgia Bulldogs off the edge. So that could explain the lack of quickness off the snap. It makes sense. Tyree Wilson was kind of a comparison though here. So could he end up being he's looking like a bust right now. But his upside is a DeMarcus Lawrence type. So it's a good landing spot for him. For me, it was a little early. That's for me, not for everyone. And there were some great fits for the 49ers here. Like, I loved Walter Nolan for them. I like Shamar Stewart a little bit better than Michael Williams for them. I love Josh Simmons for them. He ended up dropping a bit. Maybe some injury concerns there. So Walter Nolan would have been an A-plus pick for me. They go Michael. Again, I think he pans out better than expected. A good player, but in terms of the value here, I want C-plus for the 49ers. The Cowboys picking guard Tyler Booker from Alabama at pick 12. I give this one a C-, and I think Booker's a pretty safe bet to be a good, he's a physical guard. He'll probably be solid for him. He's going to start, but it's a little early looking at my board. Not the sexiest pick in the world. I really want him to take Matthew Golden or just a receiver. I mean, what a guy like Matthew Golden could have done for this offense, for Dak Prescott, for CeeDee Lamb, it could have opened up the run game more as well. I've just felt like they predetermined, I know they value offensive line so much, and they're trying to get it back on track, 'cause it used to be so good every year, and now it's kind of struggling. So I think they predetermined, we badly need a guard. We like this physical guy. But there was definitely teams that did not have Booker on their board because he didn't fit the athletic profile that they need for their scheme. Now he fits the Cowboy scheme. They look for the physical maulers, but yeah, they could have traded back and got him. There's a lot of teams that needed offensive line that he just did not fit. Like, he wasn't going to fit the Seattle Seahawks. They weren't going to take him. So you kind of go down to the Texans pick. So it's and they end up trading back. So that's a pretty different range there. So a little early. I think a different pick like a Golden could have done a lot more. I think Golden would have been awesome with them. That's something I really want them to do. So we're going to give them a C-, even though Booker could be a pretty solid player for them. 13, the Dolphins do something maybe a little unexpected, but now it happens, you go, I guess it makes sense. But Kenneth Grant, I love Kenneth Grant. I like this pick a lot. I was a big fan of Grant because he's just a different, unique, top-tier player in this draft. Top 12 on my board. You do not see guys this big that play very well. They stop the run at elite level. They get after their quarterback at elite level. But this big that can move that well, you just do not see them. It's a unique type player. I think a safe bet to be really good. He swallows up blockers. You have to double team. What does that do? It opens up for things up for Sealer, a guy that doesn't need things opened up for. Chop Robinson, who's going to be a star, and all the other pass rushers they have. And is exactly what they needed in the interior. They needed a nose tackle, and he can play more than nose tackle. I'm a big fan of Kenneth Grant, was on my guys list. I was starting to hear some things the Dolphins might reach on a guy like Starks or Zabel, so I'm very happy with them going with Kenneth Grant here at pick 13. Our first A+ of day one, the Colts selecting Tyler Warren, their absolute perfect fit, the top tight end in the class, number 4 player on the board. There was talks about them trading up to make sure they go get him. He falls right in their lap. I'm happy with the Colts done this offseason. They had a really good free agency. I think Daniel Jones will be a little sneaky for them. Of course, you want Anthony Richardson to work. They build up that defense, and they go get Tyler Warren, falls right in their lap, the perfect fit, number 4 player on the board. I think people were overthinking him a bit. This guy was a 1,000+ yard tight end. That's pretty rare. Was the best player, most dominant player on a great Penn State team. Teams knew Warren was getting the ball in some way, some form, and they still couldn't stop him. Even good defenses couldn't stop him. I think people knock him a little bit too much on the route running. I think he's got some movement to him. He doesn't have elite athleticism. I'm not too worried about it. During the year, I was saying, man, this reminds me of if George Kittle and T.J. Hawkinson had a baby. That's the fit there. Just perfect for Shane Steichen's offense. A+, fell right in their lap. Beautiful for Indianapolis. The Falcons grabbed Jalen Walker at pick 15. I give this a firm B. I know there was talk about him going top 10, and there's a lot of people out there that had him top 10 on their board. He was in the 20s for me. This was more the range, and that was because he's not going to be for everybody. What do you do with him? You have to use him as a Swiss Army knife. He's neither a great pass rusher or a great off-ball linebacker, but he's very good at both those, and he's going to make an impact. He's a guy that's probably going to light up the stat sheet in multiple categories, so he'll be flashy there. But the Falcons upgrade their pass rush. They can use him off-ball. It's a pretty good fit. They like to have their pass rushers drop in coverage. They like athletic guys here, guys with athletic traits, so they pulled the trigger on him. I just think it's kind of a firm B pick. He could be a little bit of a boomer bust guy just because where do you play him? Sometimes these tweeners, it's a little bit of a struggle. I think he's going to be solid. I think it could be a Hassan Reddick type player here. So it just felt like a B pick for the Falcons here at 15 with Jalen Walker. The second A-plus of day one, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolen, Ole Miss defensive tackle, at pick 16. An A-plus for me. Little bold, but was my top defensive tackle in the class, my number 5 overall player. I just love the explosiveness, the power, the way he beats double teams. He just works straight towards the pocket. Compared to Mason Graham, who's great. Mason Graham kind of works, sideline to sideline a little bit, wastes some time. Nolen gets his ass in that backfield, gets his ass in the pocket, super explosive. They lined him up everywhere when they put him off the edge. He just bullied the offensive tackle. So kind of remind me of Jalen Carter a little bit. I said that pre-draft. I also said if he's there, I do not see Jonathan Gannon passing on his Jalen Carter for the Arizona Cardinals. So they get Walter Nolen. Big fan of his. Top 5 on my board. Is an easy A-plus for Arizona. Bengals take Shemar Stewart at pick 17. Everyone's going to be having a mixed opinion on him, but I was a big fan of Shemar Stewart. I know fans probably don't like this one. Fans kind of ripped Shemar Stewart. They ripped me when I hyped him up just because of the lack of stats. But if you watch on film, the physical and athletic traits that he has, they show. This dude is explosive off the snap, which is step one for edge rushers. The best edge rushers in football, they explode off the snap. I heard people saying it could be like a Tyree Wilson type player. Tyree Wilson had awful get-off coming out, and he still does. That's his problem. So you can't compare the two players. This dude is a freak athlete, freak physical traits. He wins with speed. He wins with power. He wins reps, dominates reps that don't result in sacks and sometimes don't result in pressure, so people want to knock it. Texas A&M also lined him up inside at times, which results in less production because he's an edge rusher, but he looked pretty powerful there. He stops the run at a high level. He's a disruptor. He's got to finish a little bit better. I think he'll do that. I think the NFL could be a little easier for him than Texas A&M's defense because they had him doing things that you're like, he really doesn't, that he's really not, made to do all the time. So, and he still played well there. Like I said, playing inside. So I love him with Trey Hendrickson. Hopefully they get Trey Hendrickson back, but I love him in Al Golden's defense. I knew Al Golden was going to value a freaky player like this in his defense. So I think it's going to be fun. I like it. I was a big Shemar Stewart fan, unlike a lot of people out there. So A for the Bengals. Seahawks take Gray Zabel at 18. We figured this could happen. It's a really good fit in Clint Kubiak's offense outside zone. They're looking for a guard or center that can move. He's really a smooth mover, an athletic mover, really good out in space. It's not the sexiest pick in the world. In terms of my board, it's a little early, but it's such a good fit that we can't give it a bad grade really here. So I end up giving this one a B-. What I didn't like about Seattle is they kind of put themselves in position like they were taking an offensive lineman no matter what. You really don't want to be in that position, but they put themselves there during free agency throughout the offseason, how they build the offensive line. So that's not the greatest spot to be in, but again, they get a good fit, and the offensive line got better. So it's something that just needed to happen. In my opinion, the shocker of the day, the Buccaneers going with Emeka Egbuka, receiver from Ohio State. I thought he was a late first-round pick. We started to hear he's for sure going to go in the first round. He's a really good receiver, and I'll tell you what, the Buccaneers know receivers. They know how to develop him, so he's going to be really good. They badly needed defense. There was some big-time fits, good players for them here. How active is Egbuka going to be? I mean, I would assume he plays a bit, but they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. If you were a big Jalen McMillan fan, you hate this because McMillan's going to play a lot less. Another thing is they're full of slot receivers. Chris Godwin's known as one of the better slots in football. McMillan was a slot receiver at Washington. He didn't really play too well when he came in playing with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin went down. He took that role there, and he played a lot better. And then Egbuka played by far majority of the snaps in the slot. So doesn't mean he's only going to play in the slot. I'm confident with them working, developing him, working him outside. Just how much impact are we going to get right away here? I feel like they fell in love with the player. They had to have him, but I know a lot of Bucks. I felt like there was one time I mocked offense and I got destroyed for the Bucks in the comments. Like, yeah, what the needs they have on defense, they're going to go out. So I bet fans are a little disappointed they didn't go defense, but they got a really good receiver here. It was a surprise for the Buccaneers at 19. Something that we didn't really expect here, the Broncos at 20 taking Jahdae Barron, who's the top corner in the class. Now, if Will Johnson or Savone Revel were healthy, you could argue those are the top corners in the draft. But Jahdae Barron, I love him as a corner. That the quick burst, the movement skills, getting downhill, wanting to tackle, really good in zone coverage, which fits today's NFL. So they get a solid player here. But surprisingly pass on Amarian Hampton, who ends up with a division rival, the Chargers, and surprisingly pass on Matthew Golden as well. So, and I mentioned a bit in the past that the Broncos kind of sneakily need a corner, and the fans were not thrilled with me saying that. They were saying that was ridiculous take. So curious to see the fans' take now that they took a corner here in the first round. And I'm wondering if because I like him better outside than inside. A lot of people say he's got to play inside because of his size, but he moved to playing more. And you got to use him at both, right? You got to use him at both. But he moved to playing majority outside this year, and that's where he made himself into a way, way, way better player, right? So you have to mainly play him on the outside. So I'm curious to see what they do with them. If they play him only on the inside, I don't love this as much. And again, he's much better in zone than man. And the Broncos will run a little bit man, but zone's where it's at in today's NFL. So good player, kind of a surprising landing spot. Surprised they passed on Hampton, who could beat him up for years, with the Chargers. But I give this one a B. Steelers at 21, Derek Harmon, defensive tackle for Oregon. We were preaching this is a great fit. It's a perfect fit with Cam Hayward, even to be the next Cam Hayward. Pairing him with Hayward, Keanu Benton, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. This is a nasty, nasty defensive line. It's not a steal of a pick because we kind of expected it down here, but it feels like a firm A. Love the fit, love the player. I could see a world where any of the 4 top defensive tackles, including Harmon, could end up as the best defensive tackle in his class. He sheds blocks at a super high level. He gets in the pocket, the backfield at a very, very high level. He has to finish plays. This is basically the Shamar Stewart, but of the interior, because he missed a lot of tackles, like a 28% miss rate. That just can't happen here, but he's doing everything else at an elite level. Like if he finished plays better, he'd be a top 10 pick. There were some medical concerns that popped up. I'm not the expert in that field, but I'm personally not taking that serious because he's never been, it's not a concern in the past. So what's popping up right now? But Steelers get an incredible fit here at 21. I love it. I give it an A. Chargers take Omarion Hampton at pick 22. They, one of my favorite players in the draft, number 10 on my board. They get a nasty, complete running back. Checks a lot of boxes, big time running back. He's going to be awesome for Harbaugh and Greg Roman in that scheme, in that system. How are they going to split right now with him? Because they have Najee, so I don't really love that, but because it's a guy you got to give the full load to because he can do everything, right? So, but he's the guy for the future. Najee Harris, only a 1-year deal. So maybe a little bit of surprise to some people that they end up pairing those two together, but they get a big-time back. The Broncos surprisingly passed on him, and the Chargers division rival grab him here at 22, so he could beat up on the Broncos for years to come. It's definitely a possibility. So big fan of Omarion Hampton. This is borderline an A+ because I like him so much, but yeah, they end up. I thought maybe they would go golden here, but end up with a really good pick here, really good grade at an A. The third A+ given out, the Green Bay Packers steal Matthew Golden, my top receiver in the class. Not much splitting up him and Tetairoa McMillan, 2 totally different receivers, but the explosive receivers end up panning out, a little bit better. This guy is so explosive. He's so twitchy off the line. He knows how to separate. He's a way better contested catcher than you think because of his size. He shows up in big-time moments. He's a home run hitter. He was open a lot on tape compared to how much he got the ball. Exactly what the Packers needed. They finally did. They needed a receiver 1. They have a bunch of receiver 2s, solid receivers, but they can't stay consistent, and a lot of them can't stay healthy. So this is going to be their best receiver. Maybe like a week or two ago, it was expected that he could be here, but leading up to this last week, leading up to the draft, he was not supposed to be available to them. And deep down, a lot of us thought they probably wouldn't do it if he's there. Like they just don't do this. They did it. Props to Green Bay. It's a home run pick for them. Perfect fit for Jordan Love, exactly what he needed. A+ for Green Bay Packers taking Matthew Golden. The Vikings taking Donovan Jackson, guard from Ohio State. We preached this, much like the Steelers pick. We preached it for months. This is the perfect fit for the Minnesota Vikings. Is it a wow steal? No, it's not that, so we can't give it an A+, but this was a perfect fit. I mean, the Vikings wanted to trade back, but they're like, we can't because Donovan Jackson's here. It sounds like the Texans were going to take him next, so they get a plug-and-play guard. He was my number 1 guard in the class. I love this tape. I mean, this is why he was my number 1 guard, because the combination of, he is a smooth, athletic mover, like compared to a guy like Tyler Booker, but then typically those guys, do they have the physicality? Do they have the power? Jackson is a nasty, physical, powerful blocker at the same time. It's pretty rare to see that combination. So perfect plug-and-play fit for the one spot the Vikings need on the offensive line, left guard. Their offensive line is coming together. Darrisaw and O'Neal, big-time tackle duo. They add Will Fries, they add Ryan Kelly, and they add Don. the Vikings haven't had an offensive line like this on paper, at least since, the Brett Favre year, the year they went to the NFC Championship game. That offensive line was ridiculous. I'm not really saying it's going to be that good because that offensive line, again, was insane. But, man, and the bonus here, if Darrisaw gets injured again, he's had a couple injuries, a recent one. Jackson played at a super high level and helped Ohio State Buckeyes win the national title while playing left tackle. He played great, maybe other than playing Abdul Carter. It's an elite prospect. So this is exactly what the Minnesota Vikings needed here at pick 24. They get an A. Splash move here. Maybe shock some people that the Giants moved up and did not take Shedeur. They take Jackson Dart. Looking at the trade with the Texans, I expected the Giants to have to give up more. Remember, the teams trading up usually have to give up more than even value, and the Giants were kind of desperate for a quarterback, had to go up, wanted the 50-year option, needed to have him, needed to get ahead of some other teams, picking at the top of the second, getting ahead of the teams that maybe wanted to trade up. They traded even value, so I was actually surprised. That's a great trade in terms of just the picks given up. You always it hurts a little bit to give up picks and move up sometimes, but I thought they would have to trade up more. And Jackson Dart was actually my number 2 quarterback in the class ahead of Shedeur Sanders. So I feel pretty good about my quarterback rankings at the top there, him coming off the board next. Now, I still had a round 2 grade on him. You still had to trade up. He's a boomer bust type guy. Sanders was a little bit safer of a pick. Dart had way more upside. It's all about learning the offense for him. Now, this coaching staff hasn't developed players, but specifically the quarterback position, too well recently, so that's a little bit of a scare. Could it be a different staff in the near future? But I do think where it does look good for him sitting and learning is behind Russell Wilson, behind Jameis Winston. Russell Wilson with the brains, the knowledge, the experience. Winston that is a good leader. That's a good vocal guy, and he has experience. He has talent. It's a kind of a perfect combination, to teach Jackson Dart here. So I'll give it a B. They traded up for maybe an early second-round guy. It's a risky one. I thought the trade was all right. It's my number 2 quarterback. They didn't take my number 3 quarterback. So I kind of like it, actually, for the Giants and Jackson Dart. It is worth a shot here. The single toughest pick to grade since I've been doing this, been doing it for a bit. The Falcons trade up and take James Pierce. So remember, I grade the pick, the value of the pick. I don't grade how the player's going to play his rookie year. But this is why it's the toughest to grade, because I'm a big James Pierce fan. I'm not like he's a top 10 player or anything like that, my number 17 player in the draft, but I like James Pierce. This guy has a collection of traits you look for. He's a super athlete. He has different ways to win. He's thin, but he wins with power. He can play off ball. He can drop in coverage. You kind of got 2 of those guys, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. The good is you upgrade your pass rush. You upgrade your defense. You kind of got 2, somewhat similar. Walker plays off ball a little bit better, obviously, but maybe they're lacking physicality off the edge. But I like James Pierce. So if the pick was, the Falcons already had pick 26, you take James Pierce there, that's an A for me. But we cannot ignore the trades. We're not ignoring the trades for anybody. That's part of the draft. That's part of what we grade. We're grading the pick, right? Can't ignore that. That'd be asinine. But they trade up to the Rams pick. They swap their second round, and they give up a future first round. You do not see that. You do not give up a future first. The Jags give up a future first to go up and get Travis Hunter, the best player in the draft, at pick 2. So the Falcons did it here. There's a lot of risk. They still have other needs. The secondary, defensive tackle. They have a young quarterback. I think Penix is going to pan out, but if they struggle this year and it's still a little bit of a bumpy road, it's going to look really, really bad. So if you look at value, teams that move up do have to tend to give up more than even value. Doesn't mean you got to like it. They took it a step further. It's insane what they gave up. Like, insane. They're not going to be picking in the first round next year, and they do have other needs. So it's tough. I love Pierce for them. So basically what I'm thinking is that Pierce at 26, no trade. That's an A. The trade's an F. Like, that is a brutal, brutal trade. So Falcons fans can't be pissed at me here, because splitting the difference would be, in the C range. I gave it a B just because they upgraded their pass rush. I like James Pierce so much. It's a pretty good fit. So I give this one a B. Maybe that's generous given the trade. This is a tricky one to grade, because that trade, it is risky. It's risky is not the only thing that kind of explain that. The Rams were probably laughing. They're like, okay, we're gonna take this. We're getting a first round pick next year, and who knows what that first round pick's going to be. The Falcons could be talented. They'll be more talented last year than they were, so we'll see. I like the player. interesting outing from the Falcons, who were already limited on picks, by the way. So, wild splash move. Ravens at 27 take Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. Now, everyone was a little different opinion on Malachi Starks. I wasn't super high on him. He was really good in 2023 at free safety. That's the good news because he's probably going to play free safety for the Baltimore Ravens. It sure is lining up that way because they have corners that can play in the slot. They have Kyle Hamilton who, can play that strong safety, that box role. They need a free safety. So that's the good news there. 2024 tape was not great. It was not good. He played in the slot, played a lot of man coverage, both those categories. He struggled. Some people will say he's versatile, and that's kind of the best thing about him. Just because he played both positions doesn't mean he's versatile to me. He did not play well in the slot. When they, specifically a game like Texas in the SEC championship game, you could see it. Their game plan was, we're going to pick on this guy, and they picked on him. They got him good. So it's a little risky because it's been a year since he's played great. And nothing really screamed, that is a first-round player to me. Like, to me, I think he's going to be a good player. I think if he's in the right role at free safety, he's going to be a good player. So the Ravens are a really good fit. They're really smart. They're really good developing, defense. It's a really good fit. He's going to play free safety, pair him with Kyle Hamilton. They have guys that can play in the slot corner position, so you don't have to worry about him struggling in the slot. They run a bit of everything, zone and man, but I like him more in zone. He might be on an island, as a single high free at times. I wonder how he'll do with that. I do like him a little more split safety. And Marcus Williams was this big-time free safety. He struggled with the Ravens. So there is a little bit of risk here. So I think people were a little too high on Malachi Starks because he's had some flashy athletic interceptions, mainly in 2023, but to start the year in 2024. But it is a good fit. I think he'll end up being a good player. If he ended up on some other teams, I probably would have gave it, in the C range. So it's a really good landing spot for him, but hopefully he's not like a Marcus Williams type guy here. But it's an interesting one here for the Ravens at 27. One of the bigger surprises on the day, the Lions at 28 took a defensive tackle, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Now, again, we're grading the pick, not the player with this. That's how we do it. It's how we have to do it. Tyleik Williams is a solid player. Like, he is a safe bet to come in and stop the run, which I value a ton. The Lions value a ton. They were a top tier stop and run last year. Then guys got injured, and then they were getting killed against the run, and they're worried about in their minds they were worried about getting injured again. Basically, that's not a great sign though. Like if they're worried about some of these guys getting injured again, because again they get healthy, they bring in Roy Lopez, a really good run stopping nose tackle. They bring in another one here. He has some upside getting after the quarterback here, but it just felt a little early. Like he didn't nothing screamed first round about him. If I would have mocked this too, if I would have mocked this even last week, I think everyone, Lions fans would have got on me about it. Now it happens. So, the Lions make some surprising picks sometimes. Typically, I give those ones, a high grade. Like was a huge Gibbs guy. So it just felt a little early. How many snaps are we going to get out of him? Are they going to move on from DJ Reader because of this? I suggest that earlier in the offseason, fans got pissed about that as well. So, they don't necessarily need to, and they like the depth, but how much are they going to use him? How much of these going to impact? There was some really good pass rushers on the board for him, or at right here for the Lions. So felt like a C- made sense, right? Where he was on the board, not just my board, everyone's board. Who was on the board here for the Lions, and just how active is he going to be for them? I just felt like they're just focused on run defense and even rotation on run defense before everything else. So I thought a C-, kind of made sense here. This is an intriguing pick, kind of borderline a weird pick. I'll explain why, but the Commanders take Josh Connolly. I like Josh Connolly. I love this tape. Really enjoyed it. Athletic fighter. Fights through his reps. Left tackle from Oregon. Improved throughout his career, throughout this season. And the Commanders either needed a right tackle or a guard, depending on where Brandon Coleman is going to play. They played him at tackle last year. I graded him as a guard. They can use him at guard. Connolly, it's interesting because I really liked him at left tackle. And a lot of knowledgeable people telling me, this guy is not one of those guys that you move to a different spot. He's a left tackle and a left tackle only. I'm like, that's interesting. And then he gets to the Senior Bowl, and they line him up at right tackle at times. He gets his ass kicked. And it's one-on-ones. Guys weren't allowed to bull rush, and they did. So that doesn't tell all, right? And that kind of told me, all right, what people told me, was right. This guy is a left tackle only. Now, the Commanders, they have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. They're going to have to play Connolly at right tackle. I heard some people saying he's going to play guard. I don't like that because the only thing he's kind of lacking right now is the anchor ability. If he plays guard, he's going to get bullied by defensive tackle. So if they put him at guard and they put Coleman at right tackle, I'm going to bump this grade down. I'm going to bump it down a bit. I'm not going to like it. But it is a little risky putting him at right tackle, but I think the Commanders do a really good job developing, and it's kind of more of a complete offense line. I'm banking on them putting him at tackle rather than guard here. So we'll go with a B-. I like the player. The Commanders the defense is atrocious right now. They badly need it. They can try to do that in day 2 here. There was some good players from on the board here. They kind of passed on it, but we'll go B-. An intriguing pick here. Bills at 30 go at Maxwell Harrison. They get a freak athlete. They get a high upside. A good corner overall. Freak athlete, big playmaking ability. It's a boomer bust type player. I was more and more I watched him like this is a round 2 player because there are a lot of reps where he plays so far off the ball, specifically playing against good receivers. I use Matthew Golden as an example. He played against Texas. This dude was playing 20 yards off the ball, allowing everything in front of him. He kind of played a little scared, and then when he would come up to make the tackle, he would whiff. So he does have that. Kentucky is a complex defense. It's more of an NFL defense. So it was a tough role, and you like that he has that experience there. He could be a playmaker in his own coverage defense. So there are some positives. I guess Will Johnson, there was an injury concern. I still would have taken the shot on Will Johnson. But Trey Amos, I liked much better than Harrison. I guess not much better, but I like Benjamin Morrison. And that's the thing. Will Johnson's like a top-tier corner if he's healthy. Savone Revel, if he's healthy, he could be number 1 corner in his class. Benjamin Morrison, if he's healthy, he's the top corner, maybe the top corner in this class. But those guys were all injured. None of those guys the Bills wanted to take a shot on here, who I like better than Harrison. But Trey Amos is healthy and he's better. So that's kind of where I'm at with this one. It's boomer bust. I think he's either going to be great or he's going to be like not being able to, even though he's not comparable to Elam, it's going to be another Elam situation here. So a little risky, maybe a little early and over the players they took. So I gave it a C. But I'm excited about it. They needed a corner pretty badly. I'm excited to see, what type of upside he has, what he becomes. Eagles trade up 1 spot, something you don't see a lot, and you definitely don't see it a lot at the end of the first round or anything other than early in the first round. So they trade up 1 spot. Was it necessary? They take Jihad Campbell. So I do like the fit. I think they'll use him off the edge a bit where he's explosive. He was a little better off ball than he was off the edge. When he went against good tackles, he got thrown around a bit, but it worked out. Nolan Smith worked out for them, so they'll use him at both spots, but I think they value that edge a little bit more. I could see him working out there. Trading up 1 spot's at the end of the world. They traded away a 5th-round pick. It's a free 5th-round pick, but I always hate when teams even trade up 1 spot, like pick 3 to 2 to get a quarterback, and people try to make excuses for that. So this one makes less sense. Also, there were some teams that had Campbell off their board. They said he would have to start the season on the PUP list because he's had multiple injuries. He had him earlier in his career, and he had a recent one that he had recent surgery on. So it's a little risky here. A little risky doing this, and you're kind of going to move him to a different position. So you get an explosive athlete. If he's on the field, if he's healthy, I think he'll be a good player. Little risk. I gave the E. They know what they're doing, but I gave them the B here. A+ for the Chiefs. A++. Maybe the best value pick of the day when you combine everything. The Chiefs badly needed a left tackle, and they weren't supposed to be able to really get the one they wanted down here at 31. And then, boom, somehow Josh Simmons slips through. People worried about the injury, but he doesn't have durability concerns. It's just a recent injury. He worked out at his pro day. He looked fine. He looked smooth, and then he ends up dropping down here for the Chiefs. They trade back 1 spot, free 5th-round pick going back 1 spot. You get a free, and they still get Josh Simmons, a top-tier tackle, my number 3 tackle in the class. If he didn't have the injury concern, he might have been number 1. This guy could end up being the top tackle in the class. So, what a get for the Kansas City Chiefs. An elite athlete, a smooth mover, the way he explodes out of his stance, the way he explodes downfield on those downfield blocks. Elite. It's elite. He struggles to anchor at times, so he could use a little bit more power. The power shows when he's working downfield, working forward. And he's coming off the injury, but man, he was not supposed to be here at 31. They go back, they get a free pick, they get him. That's A++, exactly what they needed on top of that. You can't find any hole in this. It's an A++ pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's probably the best pick. It's probably the biggest winner on the day. But this was, I've been thinking about it. This was the most entertaining first round since I've been covering here on YouTube, since we've been doing the live stream. I really enjoyed it. And day 2 is my favorite. Day 2 is always my favorite. Last year, day 2 was one of the more entertaining day 2s. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to make a best available /mock/predictions video. And then we'll have day 2 live analysis on our Twitter. So join us there. Link pin in the comments. And then the day 2 winners and losers video comes out. We do the same stuff for day 3. So join us for all that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.